Right now, we are hearing personal testimony. This is after um, a massive raid at a plant in Georgia resulted in the arrest of hundreds of individuals working at that plant, many of them being South Koreans. And Trump administration officials say that it was an investigation into the plant, but also resulted in scores of South Koreans, where they say were illegally in the country. So this seems to be people giving their personal testimonies right now about their experiences about this. Let's go ahead and listen to what they are saying.
In Ellabelle, Georgia. CDM is an organization that partners with migrant workers to build worker power, advocate for fair labor migration policies, and ensure that borders are not a barrier to justice. The Hyundai supply chain has a documented history of labor violations. CDM is currently representing workers in 2 class action lawsuits in Georgia, where workers in the Hyundai supply chain were defrauded through a bait and switch scheme and experienced retaliation when they spoke out about poor working conditions. Employers in the Hyundai supply chain try to avoid all responsibility for their workers' well-being by hiring workers through staffing agencies and subcontractors. At this very site where last Thursday's raid occurred, workers and their representatives have documented an array of abuses, including worker deaths. Yet instead of holding employers accountable, the Trump administration is further victimizing workers. Migrant workers face high rates of wage theft, discrimination, unsafe workplaces, sexual harassment, and assault. Many of these abuses go unreported because workers fear immigration consequences if they speak out. Unscrupulous employers exploit that fear, threatening to weaponize the immigration system to silence workers. Workplace raids, like what we saw last Thursday, deepen that fear. These raids are designed to terrorize migrant workers. They are militaristic, aggressive, and often violent. In past workplace raids, workers have been racially profiled and in some instances physically assaulted by officers. By ramping up immigration enforcement in this way, the government enables abusive employers to continue exploiting workers. In fact, many of the workplaces targeted for raids since 2018 already had documented histories of labor violations, like the Hyundai plant in Ellabelle. And yet, time and again, we see that employers face no comparable accountability. That imbalance sends a clear message. When ICE comes to a workplace, it is the workers, not their abusive employers, who pay the price. Time and again, workers are handcuffed, profiled, arrested, jailed, deported, and separated from their families. We demand that our representatives focus on ensuring that employers like Hyundai are held accountable and respect the rights of those who work in their supply chain, rather than making workers more vulnerable to abuse and retaliation through actions like last Thursday's raid. We will continue to organize with our communities to protect the rights of migrant workers, and we demand that our representatives do the same.
Good morning, and thank you all so much for being here. I'm State Representative Ann Allen Westbrook. I represent Georgia House District 163. You are in Georgia House District 163 this morning. It is my great honor to stand with all of these leaders and all of these organizations. I know for a fact that MESE has been working nonstop since Thursday morning, probably haven't slept. They have immediately gone into action to support the needs of this community, specifically our immigrant neighbors. And I'm certain our coalition members who are represented here have done the same. I look at this situation as a legislator in the Georgia State House, and I see no winners in this situation. My colleagues here have spoken very eloquently about how hard this hit our immigrant communities. Certainly, they are first and foremost in our minds, those most closely affected by this situation. Those who ended up in ICE detention. And I think the context matters at this time. This is ICE detention at a time when ICE is ever expanding, ever resourced, while every other agency that supports Americans is less and less resourced. This is ICE detention at a time when due process is out the window. We know that there have been immigrants who have been sent to foreign prisons on the basis of the tattoos they had. We know that there are immigrants, undocumented folks at risk of being sent to foreign countries to which they have absolutely no connection. So I think it's important to keep due process in the forefront here and the rule of law in the forefront. The rule of law protects all of us or it protects none of us. And we have to care about the rule of law at all times, including now, when vulnerable folks are most affected. But I do look at this as a Georgia state legislator, and I think of all that Georgians have invested in this project, all that Georgians have invested in building a relationship with Korea, a business relationship, a diplomatic relationship, a friendship, and how much this situation on Thursday, this raid, undermines that friendship. And I think about all the costs that have been felt in this community, our water woes, our traffic. There's, growth brings discomfort as well as the hoped for prosperity. But no one has won in this situation. Not our immigrant neighbors, certainly, not worker safety, not environmental or other types of legal compliance, and certainly not Georgians. So it is my honor to stand with these folks today. I urge more elected leaders to speak out and stand with us and support these leaders and the immigrant communities that they speak for at this time when it's desperately needed. Thank you.
So for our last message, we can't do this alone. Coastal Georgia is in the spotlight everywhere. As a person that was raised in South Georgia, I refuse to let my home be known as a place of hate. Coastal Georgia will be known as a place of love because that is what we are. But we can't do this alone. So at Migrant Equity Southeast, we ask you for help. We ask you for your support. So for everyone that is watching, pay attention to what's happening. Because on September 4th, it happened to immigrant workers. And in the future, we don't know who will be next. So please, we ask you for your support. Together, we can do a lot more. Together, we can stand up for the rights of immigrants and refugees. Thank you.
We're going to close the press conference, but speakers are available for individual interviews. Thank you.
Okay, you were listening to immigrant rights activists there in Georgia speaking after that Hyundai plant, was raided by government officials here in the U.S. in Georgia, and hundreds of workers there were arrested, many of them South Korean workers who were detained in what is being called a massive immigration raid. And this has really reached across the globe, adding a lot of shock and a sense of betrayal as well among many in South Korea. South Korean leaders have issued statements in the recent days since this took place, saying that they are frustrated with what has taken place. Associated Press saying that South Korean leaders were very upset about this, and a foreign minister just left for the U.S. this morning to come here to finalize the return of these workers. This happening on September 4th, ending in the detainment of 475 workers, more than 300 of them South Koreans, at this battery factory. Definitely something that has caused a lot of conversation, as President Trump is saying that those workers were here illegally. South Korean government officials are still saying that what took place should not have happened, and that it is a, quote, very serious matter that they had not anticipated, particularly after just less than a month ago, the leader from South Korea was here in the U.S. to work through a deal for the country to invest a lot of money into the U.S. And so that's something we're certainly going to keep an eye on to see what happens with those workers, with that plant. and to see what comes up of the U.S. and South Korean relationship with this as well.